This show is brought to you by The law isn't always black and white. When you need a lawyer who knows the law, call Michael Santa Barbara. Auto, truck, motorcycle accidents, wrongful death, free initial consultations, no recovery, no fee. Appointments available 24/7, including home and hospital. For all your personal injury cases, call Michael. Shirley Jakes from CCAP Loaves and Fishes, who's on the board of directors and a volunteer, has graciously agreed to come on in today and talk a little bit about the organization, what they do, and things like that. Shirley, thank you for coming in.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shirley, why don't you give us just a little brief history on CCAP?
I think CCAP Loaves and Fishes is one of the most unique organizations anywhere. We've moved around quite a bit, and I've always been involved in community activities, and I've never run across another organization like this. One of the things that makes it unique is that it is all volunteer. There is not a single paid employee, even though we spend approximately $300,000 a year helping the folks in Berkeley County.
That's a bunch.
That is a bunch. And that means that we need lots of support from people like you. But CCAP started 30 years ago this September with a contribution that was made to Trinity Episcopal Church with the direction that some organization such as this might be started. At that particular time, the churches were having an issue, I guess you could say, with people going down the street. If you've driven through Martinsburg, you know that there are many churches clustered close together. So I suppose people would go down the street and knock on the door of Trinity Episcopal, and then go on down the street and mark on the door of the Baptist Church and the Methodist Church and ask for the same kind of help. And so there were people who were getting duplicate help when perhaps they only needed help from one place. And so it was suggested that there be a central organization that the churches could give their money to, and then direct people who came to them for help to go to this central organization, which has become CCAP Loaves and Fishes, for the kind of assistance that they were coming to the churches for. Then the other thing that happened was General Motors had a plant here that they closed. So that meant that they had lots of employees who were laid off without jobs, and they wanted to provide some place these employees could go to receive some assistance. So they made a considerable contribution to CCAP, with the understanding that the money they gave was to be, first of all, used for their former employees, and then after that, the money that was still there could be used for anyone who lived in Berkeley County with need.
Did they put a time limit on that, how long the money would be held for their employees?
I do not know that because I've only been here about 7.5 years, and I've never heard that was the case.
Right. Now, how many people a year does CCAP help?
Thousands.
Thousands.
We probably help 3,000 to 4,000 people a year, between the financial assistance and the food assistance.
Now, what does CCAP offer to these people?
CCAP stands for Congregational Cooperative Action Project, which I've always thought if they made any mistake at all, it was in the name. Because if you tell me Congregational Cooperative Action Project, I don't know what that means. You know, that's just kind of strange. So it started out as CCAP, and CCAP was designed to be a financial assistance program. Today, CCAP helps financially with rent. So if someone is going to be evicted because they have not paid their rent, they can come to CCAP by way of DHHR. Within the last year, we started requiring people to go to DHHR. We're probably the only organization in town that doesn't require a court-ordered eviction. And we did that because if you go to court, there's another $100 approximately in court fees that you have to pay.
Wow.
And then United Way has a regional resource connection program in which they try to get all of the agencies that help people in Berkeley County to cooperate so that there aren't duplicate services. And so it was through them that we were encouraged to have our clients go to DHHR, even though DHHR will not help people with rent if they don't have a court-ordered eviction. But they will do their screening process for us so that we better know that the request is legit, that we don't have to go through the landlord. There was a lot of researching that we needed to do when they came into our office
So
now we don't have to do.
They bring some kind of a form from DHHR?
They bring a referral from DHHR. Mm-hmm. And when they bring that referral, then we can help them either with a security deposit if they're trying to get into a new place, or with rent if they're behind in their rent. Right. So we can do those two kinds of things concerning rent. And that, of course, is a major financial expense. We help with up to $300 per request in a 36-month period. Mm-hmm. We used to help with rent once a year, then it went to once in 24 months, and now it's in 36 months. The reason for that, two reasons. One is we felt like that when we were helping once a year, there were a few people who showed up every year.
Same time every year?
Yes, and so not too many, but there were some, and we don't help people financially as a means to know that's in your budget every year, that we're going to help with your rent once a year.
Right.
We help people financially, hoping that this will get them over a hump, and then they'll be able to do it for themselves.
There seems to be a distinct difference between people who are trying to, they had some legitimate problems. They generally work. They generally do well. They got into a bad spot. They got laid off, and they're in a jam. Those people who will only need help that one time, and just like you say, get them over the hump, versus the group that are professional handout people. They know every trick, every place to go to get a food or money from people, and they just work it like the system,
Well, I think there are people like that. I like to think that most of the people who come to us are not that kind of person. Plus, we've tried to design our schedule for help so that that's not really a possibility, right. Not a legitimate possibility.
Well, you keep a record of everybody who comes in? And
we have a file on everyone who comes in, so we know if you came to see me today at CCAP and you wanted help with your rent, you'd have to have the referral from DHHR, and then I would also check to make sure that you hadn't received rental assistance from us within the last 36 months. Mm-hmm. We also help with prescriptions, and I think this is one of the best things we do, because we have people come in who say, they didn't have any money to buy their medicine and they really needed it. We help with $100 worth of prescriptions per person per 12-month period. The reason I keep saying per 12-month period is we do not do a calendar year. Mm-hmm. So it's not from January 1 to December 31st.
It's 12 months from the first time they come in and start.
It's 12 months from, if you came to see me today and needed help with medicine, I would look back in your chart 12 months from today's date to the same date of last year and add up how much money we had assisted you with medicine. And then I would decide whether we had money still to assist you today.
Now, are these records computerized, or are they all just paper still?
Both. We're trying to get them into a computer system, but we have a ways to go with that, quite honestly.
Work on a database.
But we do have the records, so if you've been to see us, we know it.
Now, do you have somebody who's working on that for you, on a database?
We have volunteers who come in and help with that. We have volunteers that help with entering data into the computer. We have volunteers that sit at a desk in the waiting room and register people as they come in. We have people who work in the CCAP area where the financial assistance is provided. And when I say financial assistance, please note that that's not cash. We don't give out cash. We give out vouchers.
Yeah.
And then we have people who volunteer in the Loaves and Fishes area, our food bank area. And our food bank is the largest in Berkeley County.
Wow.
But let me go back a minute. You asked me what
Well,
CCAP
I made a big smile. I want them to understand why. I've done volunteer work down at CCAP myself, and they need help, so go there.
Yes.
But for what reason, I have no idea. They put me on the receptionist desk, and I mean, I'm just so cute, I guess. I don't know.
That's probably it.
Either that or maybe they thought I was more like a bouncer at the front door. I don't know. But I've had some great experiences down there, some great stories. So I'm sorry. Now, what were you going to say?
Well, you had asked me what CCAP does, and so some other things that they do besides the rent and the medicine. Those are the two biggies. But we also help with water sewer disconnects. That would be the third largest thing we do.
Heating?
We cannot help with heating. When I first started at CCAP, we helped with heating in the form of kerosene, which is kind of a dangerous form of heating anyhow. But we were going broke. When the oil prices, the fuel prices started going through the roof, we were afraid we were going to have to close our doors.
Right.
If we kept helping with heating assistance. Plus, DHHR or United Way or some of the other organizations who get help with the Warming Hearts and Hands and those kinds of things, they get more money to provide heating assistance. So if someone needs help with heat, again, we would send them to DHHR. DHHR is a good place to go to begin with, regardless, because they know the agencies in town and what they help with. So we also help with gasoline to get to a doctor's appointment or a job interview. And we have to have proof of that. We will not help with gas to get to a job, because where does that stop? We help with bus passes if people do not have cars to get to DHHR or workforce or job interview or a doctor's appointment. So those are the major things we do. There's some other little things.
Right. Is there a group, like a meeting of all the different help organizations like CCAP, United Way, DHHR, where they have meetings of the minds?
There is a regional resource committee that meets once a month, and then there is an overall meeting of all the agencies that United Way services are as involved with United Way once a quarter. And that's very well attended, and you often can make contacts with other agencies that are beneficial both ways.
Now, I don't know if you keep a record of such things or if you even know. Do you know what the percentage of vets who use your services are?
I know that we have people coming in who are vets, but I do not know the percentage.
A lot? A few?
I can't even judge that, because that really isn't a question we ask.
Right.
Sometimes they will say they were referred there by the VA or by the vet organization in town, but we don't necessarily know that. So I really can't answer that.
I was just curious. Now, what would you say is the single biggest contributing factor to people needing help in this area?
Well, in the last few years, it's been losing jobs. And we're still getting people coming in who have just lost their jobs. I worked at CCAP on Monday, volunteered there, and I had a lady come in who had recently lost her job and had a water sewer disconnect that we were able to help with. But you think things are getting better, and then you go in and volunteer at CCAP, and you have 2 or 3 people that day that their house is being foreclosed on, or we don't have a whole lot of people who actually own their homes.
Do you help with people who own their homes too?
We can. It is very difficult. We can provide the same kind of assistance towards a mortgage payment, but most mortgages are held by companies far away. And so to get through the process,
a lot of red tape and paperwork.
Yeah, you'll call and talk to one person, and they transfer you to another person, and maybe an hour and a half later, They'll
I
say,
love those merry-go-rounds on the phones. I had one, I'll never forget this as long as I live. Press 1 here for this, press 2 for that, and I just kept this and that, and I got a person, and then they said, okay, this is the wrong department, and I'll connect you with the right one. I got another person who was the wrong department, they'll connect me with the right one, and then I got press 2 for this, press 3 for that, and I did, and the last one, of course it had to be the last one because the recording said, okay, goodbye. Just like that, out of nowhere.
I'm not surprised.
No, I hate those recordings. I hate them. And, you know, it does save money for the big companies maybe, but I got to tell you, I get a recording.
I
If
agree.
I get those phone calls, I mean, the audacity of people who want something from you and begin it by something as impersonal as a recording. It's like, hi, we're going to ask you for money, or we're going to ask you for a poll, or we're going to ask for this. But they want something from you.
Yes.
And they do it with a recording. And personally, I find that so offensive. If you want some of my time,
I agree with you.
and I've often wished that I had a recording that answered those things with a recording, you know?
Yes.
And just droned on.
Yes.
It's really
Yeah, I
not
agree.
right. But anyway, we diverse there for a minute. Now, CCAP, is it, you get most of your donations from where?
We receive our funding from churches. Churches provide the biggest percentage of our funding. United Way is a big contributor. Businesses in the community contribute. Individuals contribute.
People can bring, what can the average person like myself or anybody that lives in the area that wants to help, what can they bring and what can they specifically not bring?
They can always bring money. And you know, and I'll talk about some
And
other
we're
things.
not automated here.
I'll talk about some other things in a minute. But you don't have to give. There are people who give us substantial donations. And for that, we're very grateful. But if you have $5 that you can spare, if you have $20 that you can spare, one of the most touching contributions I ever knew of was a lady. I'd been on a radio show and talked about the need, and we received a letter from a lady who had put $20 in the letter saying she had listened to me on the radio, she had heard about the need, she was just getting ready to go to the grocery store and thought that we could use $20 of her grocery money more than she could.
Wow.
And so there are always those people who reach into their pocket as deep as they can go. We can always use money because, as I said, the CCAP side of our organization is all money. It's all financial. And then the Loaves and Fishes side, which is the food bank, if people haven't contributed food that we need to go to the grocery store and buy it. And I know I talked to Melanie Files, who she and Rick Lohman are working with Loaves and Fishes right now, last evening, and I told her I was doing this, and I said, what is it you want me to tell people that you really need? And she said, peanut butter. The price,
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter. The price of peanut butter has really escalated in the last few months.
I don't get that.
And it's such a staple.
Yes.
You know, it has protein. Kids can make sandwiches with it. You don't have to cook it.
Kids love peanut butter.
You don't have to have a stove. You don't have to, you know.
I remember when peanut butter took its first big jump back in the 70s when they tried to say there was a meat shortage. You know, there was the gas shortage.
Okay.
And all of the greed companies jumped on the bandwagon. There was paper shortages and everything was a shortage all of a sudden so they could double the price. There was no shortage. But they got crazy on meat. So people boycotted the meat. I love New York. In New York, that's where I grew up, New York City. You can get as many people, more than you could ever need, in one place to do anything at any given moment. They're like right on board, you know? And they have this reputation for not getting involved, but that's only because with that many people in that small of an area, it's basically just giving people their personal space. But anyway, the meat companies got greedy. So everybody boycotted meat, and meat rotted right off the shelves. Big headlines, apologies in the newspapers. But people started buying peanut butter. There was actually a point to this. People started buying peanut butter a lot because it was inexpensive and it was protein and it was a good way to avoid the meat, right?
Right.
Within a couple of months, peanut butter doubled.
Huh.
And that never did go back down. So I've noticed, and it may be coincidence, but I don't think it's always coincidence.
Yeah.
When people stop buying a lot of meat because the money's tight, I wonder what the peanut butter sales are like, because at that same time I noticed suddenly peanut butter goes up again.
That's interesting, because you certainly could give your child a peanut butter sandwich a lot cheaper than you can give them a meat a sandwich.
Right.
Yeah. That's very interesting. But right now, peanut butter is expensive, and so when people don't give it, we have to buy it. And I think Melanie said it's costing about $1 more per jar than what they've had to pay in the past.
Mm-hmm. Wow, $1 more.
About $1 more.
Are there any supermarkets that work with you and give discounts?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Martin's has been particularly good to us. Sometimes when you go into Martin's, they will be doing a drive after you bought your groceries or you're paying for your groceries. Mm-hmm. They'll say, would you like to contribute $1 to the local food bank?
Yeah,
and that local food bank is Loaves and Fishes.
Oh, great.
And so they give us a credit in the store, and so when we need food, we can go there and use some of that credit to get some of the food.
They give you a discount?
I don't believe they give a discount, but they do give us money.
It's nice of them. Yeah, they give you money. That's a great thing.
And Food Lions help us out. They will do fundraisers or give us food. Martin's and Food Lion and Weiss has also given us contributions. So the supermarkets in the area do help out.
Now, what about the other supermarket? Any others?
If there are others, I can't even think of any other supermarkets.
In particular, because I didn't want to give them a bad name, you know.
Well, I can't think of any other supermarkets in this area besides Martin's and Food Lion and Weiss. I'm not familiar with.
Does Weiss help you out?
They do. You know, Martin's is probably the biggest because they do these dollar contributions at the cash register every so often. They also, at Thanksgiving, you know, when you can earn points to get a turkey or a lasagna. Mm-hmm. And that's not Martin's per se in that case, but people will give us their coupons instead of using them themselves, and then we can get the turkeys.
Well, now, do you have a thing where people can bring you coupons? Is that something you ask for?
Do you mean coupons?
Food coupons for shopping?
We really don't have the means to use those, and very few of the coupons that you see in the paper are for the kinds of goods that we put in the boxes.
Well, I want to make a point of that, so don't bring her loads of coupons.
I think that's true, because someone would have to take care of them.
So
and we have over 100 volunteers, but it takes that many volunteers to do the work of the organization.
Now, at Christmas time, do you get anything special, toys, things like that given?
We do not do any of that. There are other organizations. Again, you know, one of the things that United Way has tried to promote is that different organizations help with different things at different times. We do Thanksgiving baskets, for instance. Salvation Army does food at Christmas. The Toys for Tots does toys.
What happens but people can bring toys there for the kids, right?
We really don't have the space for it. So there are other places, I'm sure, that would take toys. Probably some of the shelters would probably enjoy getting some toys for people who come there because they've left everything behind.
I was thinking of the women's shelter, and another question popped into mind. Do you get more men than women or more women than men? Or the same?
It's not significant enough that I've ever noticed a difference.
About the same?
Yes. Yes.
It's interesting. So now, is there anything else you want to say to the folks before we wrap this one up?
I would just like to thank the people in this community because you've been really generous to CCAP Loaves and Fishes. Every time we've been really strapped and we've come before you and asked for help, people step forward. CCAP Loaves and Fishes is one of a kind. It's there for the people of Berkeley County. You must be a Berkeley County resident to receive help from us. That's the way the organization was established and registered with the state. But it is such a wonderful organization, and there are people who come into our office every day saying, I don't know what I would do without you. I'm so glad you're here. And I like to think that we make people feel like we treat them with kindness and respect, because we might be in their shoes one day ourselves.
You never know what's going to happen. The other thing I wanted to make sure everybody understood was how to find you. I know there's some weirdness with the parking.
Yes. We are in the basement of the old St. Joe's School. For those of you who've been around a long time, that wouldn't have meant much for me, but that's at the corner of 336 South Queen Street. The building is an old brick building on the corner. You enter through a side door into the basement area. That is where we're located. There is a gravel parking lot right there. There isn't a lot of parking in that lot.
Yeah, you can't actually park in the area that's closest to the building. There's a sign there.
The offices for St. Joe's are in the building also, and the building belongs to St. Joe's. So they obviously need some parking that's theirs. And they allow us a little bit. You want to be careful you don't park where it says no CCAP parking, because if you do, you may be towed, and then you may have a $100 tow bill.
Right.
But you can also park on the street, pay a meter if you choose to do that. But generally, I think most people can find parking for the amount of time they're going to be there. We are there Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And if you're coming in to see us, I like to encourage people to get there at least by 12:30, because we're all volunteers, and most of our volunteers want to be able to leave at 1 o'clock. There have been times when I've been there until after 2. And that wouldn't happen if people came in a little earlier, I think.
Right. Now, you used to be, the entrance was around behind the building, and that's now moved. For those of you who know a bit about it and had been there in the past, the entrance has moved from the back of the building to, if you're facing it from the street now, the left side. If you're facing it from Queen Street, it's now on the left side back corner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I want to thank you for coming in and telling everybody about CCAP, and I wish you the best of luck. And it's really credit to you for all that you're doing personally with them. And I wish you all a lot of luck with that. And folks, best way to help is money and peanut butter.
Money and peanut butter.
Money and peanut butter. I guess they're both. One is sticky, the other one is.
And if you want to volunteer, contact us also.
And I tell you, it's rewarding. I've done volunteer work down there where I've gone in and sat at the desk, like I said, and played a receptionist. You know, when I first asked me to do a receptionist, you know, I envisioned me sitting there doing my nails and chewing gum, you know, but I don't have much nails, I didn't chew gum, and I don't have much hair either, so I couldn't spend hours doing that. So, but it's very rewarding, and the people that you meet generally do need help. They're not necessarily deadbeats. A lot of them are people who are having a really hard time. So pitch in and help.
There are also people who are working. We get people who come in who are working, but they're not making enough money that they can buy their medicine or keep up with their rent all the time. They're just in a bad way.
Right.
And I will tell you, as I said, I've moved around a lot. I've always been involved in community activities and tried to help out in my community. CCAP Loaves and Fishes is the most unique, the greatest organization I've ever been involved with, because when you help there, when you give your money to them, whatever you do to help out that organization, it is not going to pay someone's salary. It is going to help the people in this community, your neighbors, my neighbor, those people who need help, who need a little bit of help to get over the hump, and then maybe they'll be able to make it on their own. And someday they'll come. We have people who come back and give us contributions or come in and volunteer and say, you were there for me, and now I want to be there for someone else.
So now it's your turn. Come in and be there for somebody else. Thank you for watching. Shirley, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it very much. And you folks, have a great day.